Haiphong Port, positioned as a direct gateway connecting the East Asian mainland to the sea, stands before a unique geoeconomic advantage, where value lies not only in the goods passing through, but in its irreplaceable role within regional flows. Haiphong is no longer merely a port city. It is gradually becoming a vital nexus in the strategic relationship between Vietnam and China. The core issue is not about who controls Haiphong, but rather who needs whom more in this game. From a geoeconomic perspective, China's demand stems from a structural weakness. Major inland production hubs like Kunming or Chengdu are locked deep within the mainland, causing logistics costs to soar when goods must be transported to eastern ports. In this context, Haiphong emerges as an optimal exit, significantly shortening the distance to the sea and opening a more efficient economic corridor. Furthermore, diversifying transport routes helps China mitigate strategic risks, as traditional coastal ports are located near sensitive areas. However, it is noteworthy that Vietnam does not stand in a passive position. Instead of merely playing a transit role, Vietnam is step-by-step shaping Haiphong as a value filter where goods do not just pass through but are processed and restructured to add value before entering international markets. Simultaneously, a strategy of diversifying partners helps balance influence and avoid dependence on any single party. In this tug-of-war, Haiphong is not just a gateway to the sea, but a strategic chess piece where the final outcome will depend on Vietnam's capacity to control the value chain. Looking at Haiphong's increasingly clear role, it is evident that this story is not purely economic, but reflects a long-term strategic calculation by China. First, regarding the supply chain, China faces a paradox. On one hand, it is the factory of the world with immense production capacity. On the other hand, its economic spatial structure is skewed toward the eastern seaboard. While major inland production centers like Kunming or Chengdu hold great potential, they are constrained by their distance from the sea. Transporting goods over 2,000 kilometers to reach ports like Shanghai or Shenzhen not only increases costs, but also extends lead times, directly impacting competitiveness. In this context, Haiphong emerges as an option for supply chain restructuring. The distance from Yunnan down to Haiphong is only about 800 to 900 kilometers, meaning transportation costs are slashed and time is significantly reduced. This not only helps Chinese goods reach markets faster, but also opens the possibility of forming a new economic corridor, directly connecting southwest China with Southeast Asia and further toward the Indian Ocean. However, looking at it solely through an economic lens is insufficient. A deeper motivation lies in the logic of logistics security. For many years, the bulk of China's exports has relied on eastern coastal ports, areas located near geopolitical hotspots. In a scenario of instability, over-reliance on a single seaward direction would become a major risk. Therefore, opening an additional exit through Haiphong not only optimizes costs, but also serves as a strategic backup, helping to disperse risk and increase flexibility in trade operations. In other words, Haiphong is not just a convenient choice. It is becoming a vital link in how China redesigns its economic space. At this point, a familiar rule is clearly visible. Geography is not just a foundation, but a factor that shapes strategy. Reality shows that the thirst for the sea in southwest China is not a fleeting story, but originates from geographical constraints. Being landlocked makes it difficult for provinces like Yunnan or Sichuan to fully exploit their production potential without an efficient outlet to the sea. Compared to the 2,000-kilometer journey to eastern ports, the connection down to Haiphong, covering less than 1,000 kilometers, clearly offers a superior advantage. This disparity has transformed Haiphong from an alternative choice into a near-optimal escape route. On a broader level, this demonstrates how geography can impose strategic behavior on a nation. China does not lack seaports, but it lacks gateways close to its vast inland regions. In that context, directing attention southward, specifically toward Haiphong, is almost an inevitable consequence. However, it is notable that the story does not stop at China's needs. It also lies in how Vietnam chooses its position within this flow. Haiphong could become a mere transit corridor, where goods pass through and continue their journey to the world. But this carries a clear risk: low added value, dependence on external cargo volumes, and the danger of falling into a transit trap. This is a model many gateway nations have encountered, where infrastructure develops, but the bulk of the benefits do not remain within the domestic economy. Yet, at the same time, the massive flow of goods from China opens a rare opportunity. Once there is sufficient scale, Vietnam can completely redefine Haiphong's role, not just as a place where goods pass through, but where they are processed, restructured, and value is added. This requires a clear strategic choice: connecting infrastructure to welcome the flow, while simultaneously maintaining control over how that flow operates. Investing in railway systems, seaports, and economic zones is not just to serve transport needs. It is the foundation for building a complete economic ecosystem. There, logistics is only the beginning, while the true value lies in manufacturing, services, and associated value-added activities. At this intersection, the nature of the problem becomes clear. This is not a story of giving a ride or opening the door, but a story of leveraging a partner's needs to serve one's own development strategy. When China needs an efficient outlet to the sea, Vietnam holds an opportunity to upgrade its position in the regional value chain. Thus, Haiphong is not just a crossing point for transport routes, but a crossroads of strategic choices. The final result will depend not only on the existing geographical location, but on how Vietnam organizes, controls, and exploits the flow passing through it. Building on these established geoeconomic and strategic calculations, Vietnam's choice in exploiting Haiphong is revealing a clear direction, moving beyond the transit role toward controlling the core value of the supply chain. The heart of this approach lies in the value filtering strategy. The formation of a large-scale coastal economic zone of approximately 20,000 hectares in Haiphong is not simply about expanding industrial space. It is about establishing a mechanism to retain value. Instead of letting goods go straight from inland China to the port for export, Vietnam creates conditions for this cargo stream to stop, to be processed, assembled, and finished before hitting international markets. The difference lies here. Every additional processing step shifts a portion of the value from transportation to production. Coupled with this is the leveraging of free trade agreements such as the EVFTA or CPTPP. When goods are processed in Vietnam and meet rules of origin, they are no longer mere transit goods, but become products that can access major markets with tariff preferences. This is the key point. Value does not lie in how many containers are moved, but in how much actual benefit each container brings to the economy. From a broader perspective, this strategy places Haiphong on a larger chessboard, the regional geopolitical chessboard. Vietnam does not approach this story one-dimensionally, but actively diversifies its relationships. While China pushes for infrastructure connectivity and trade flows, other partners like Japan, the United States, or Europe are present in complementary sectors such as seaports, technology, energy, and finance. This diversity creates a notable balance. When Haiphong becomes an intersection of interests for many parties, the likelihood of being dominated by a single partner decreases. Conversely, Vietnam's position is strengthened by its central role in coordinating and connecting different streams of interest. Here, the more parties involved, the wider the space for strategic choices. Nevertheless, Haiphong's future is not a fixed script, but depends on practical implementation. One possible scenario is the city developing as a massive transit hub, where goods pass through at high speeds, but most of the value shifts outward. In that case, infrastructure still develops, but long-term benefits may not match the potential. In contrast, a more positive scenario is taking shape. Haiphong becomes an integrated hub where logistics, manufacturing, and financial services coexist and complement each other. In that case, the city's role is not just a gateway to the sea, but a place where value is formed, capital is coordinated, and markets are connected. This is also the model pursued by many successful economic centers in the region. From these analyses, a key point is evident. China's need for access to Haiphong is an objective reality, but the final outcome of this story does not lie in that need. It lies in how Vietnam chooses to exploit and control it. This is not just a simple economic puzzle, but a process of shaping status within the value chain and the regional power structure over the long term.